Hey everybody. Welcome to episode 150 of the HooperCast. Just want to say a quick little note before this episode began. First of all, 150 is a big number. 200 is a bigger number. So maybe at episode 200, we'll do something a little special. But it's fun to think about the fact that some of you, maybe none of you, maybe one or two of you, which is all of you, have been listening to and watching the show since day one, when we first started this thing. So it's fun to think that someone out there might have been with us all the way. And if you weren't, that's cool too. It's just a fun time to reflect on the show's infancy and how we do the show now. And I don't know how much better Dustin and I at least think we've gotten at it. So anyway, I also wanted to say a quick little apology for technical difficulties. I wanted to get this episode out on Wednesday when it was supposed to be out, but this thing decided to break, and I couldn't do anything without it. I couldn't edit without it. Couldn't do a thing. Couldn't even log into this computer without it. So I have a wired keyboard on the way here. It wouldn't have been here until the weekend, but thank you to Drew Tanner. Thanks to him and his kindness, I have this little wireless one. And that is allowing me to do all this stuff. So that's great. Without further ado, we'll commence with the Black Panther episode. I'm sorry I didn't get it out sooner. We actually saw a theatrical release and had a review on it the following early week, and it just didn't work out this time because of technical difficulties. So whatever, things happen. I'm not going to beat myself up over it, and you shouldn't either. But until then, until episode 200, thanks for listening and watching, and enjoy the episode. Damn right. Welcome to episode 150 of the HooperCast, everybody. It's been a long journey, and now we're here. And for our 150th episode, possibly our last, if my computer doesn't stop bugging out. But,
we will find a way, Hooper.
Well,
this will not be the last.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly.
Life finds a way.
I was going to make some reference to Jeff Goldblum after seeing that trailer again.
Yes.
If you are watching us on video, you obviously have found us on YouTube, so gracias for that. We're also on audio on SoundCloud, so MR Hooper-1 on SoundCloud is the profile, the account, and then if you're listening to us on SoundCloud and you stumbled across us or you actually followed us, thanks. We have a video show on YouTube, HooperCast on YouTube, HooperCast, letterboxed. On YouTube.
Letterboxd.
Not Letterboxd. That's an inside joke, everybody. Good way to bring people in, inside jokes.
Correct.
But yeah, so we have a video show that we're doing right now, in fact. So and it's slightly better than the audio show. So go check it out on YouTube. Yeah. So we're here today to it is of course Wednesday, the 20th. Sorry. It is hopefully Wednesday. It might be Thursday. Either way, hopefully
it is a day.
You're having a good.
And you are alive.
Yes. Dustin and I are here to talk about a new release, which is rare for me. So it's a Marvel movie. Of course, that film would be Black Panther, which Dustin and I both saw over the weekend. Dustin saw a little bit more of a fancy screening than I did.
Yes. Yes, I did see it a couple days early, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay. Yes. So Dustin got to see it a sneak peek of the entire film. So yeah, we're going to talk about this today. I guess just to briefly set it up, I mean, I'd be shocked if you found the review. Obviously, you know what Black Panther is, but Black Panther, in case you just had no idea, is a Marvel film. It is the 18th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
which is crazy.
It is directed by Ryan Coogler, and it stars Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrero, Martin Freeman, Daniel Kaluuya, Letitia Wright, Winston Duke, Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, and Andy Serkis. A really great cast.
And Martin Freeman.
I said Martin Freeman.
Oh, okay.
I know, because I'm staring at the list that I read it off of, Dustin.
Oh, I was also going to say Forrest Whitaker, but I do think you said that one too.
I would not leave out one of the only white cast members in this film. Because the plot certainly does. Just kidding. It doesn't really. It's whatever.
It's not his movie.
It's not his movie at all. It is a very great cast. Some talented people in front of and behind the camera on this movie. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if you just want to, just to speed things along. I wanted to start with, I don't know. Do you want to start with our ratings? I don't know. Just as a starting point, as a baseline.
Yeah, we can do that.
Which of our ratings would you give Black Panther, Dustin?
I think I would give it 4 stars.
See, I started with 4. I was 4 for a few days.
Where did you end up?
I'm basically at 3.5. So
okay,
3. Okay. See, I don't even know now, because we always talk about what would the general audience, how would you recommend it for? I think it's still not realizing how our rating system really works. I will also give it a 4. But I'm going to personally skew it down, because I think the general audience will agree with that rating. I think that the general audience will enjoy this film, despite the flaws I have with it. I think the flaws I have with it are flaws that the general audience will not have with it.
I feel like for me it's a 4-star, just because if you sort of scale it up, right, that's essentially an 80%.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that's a fair number.
Well,
I wouldn't dip down into the 70s, I don't think.
No, absolutely no. This is better than that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the good things about it, because I do have issues with it that I've sort of percolated in the past few days, but but I will say, right after we watched it, I sat there and tried to poke holes in it. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't, for the most part. I could later. Sure. But the good of this film, the biggest good that stands out to me, I'm going to go ahead and just start with this, is Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
Michael B. Jordan not only delivers a really good performance, but they wrote for him, Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole wrote for him a very realized villain.
Well, yeah, and you guys, anybody that follows the HooperCast knows that I typically don't like Marvel villains. I feel like they're flat, one-dimensional, kind of forgettable. And going in, that was a concern for me, because the trailers sort of make it look like, oh, he's just like an evil Black Panther, he just has the same suit, same powers, whatever. Yeah. But I think it's one of Marvel's strongest villains yet.
Yeah, this guy. His name is he's Killmonger is the villain. I forget what his actual name is. Eric something.
Yeah, Eric something. They call him Eric Killmonger.
Yeah, but Michael B. Jordan, without giving him too much away and all that stuff, but he has a philosophy that is relevant to the weaknesses of the main character. So the main character, of course, being T'Challa. I don't know what the hell is his last name. I don't know. I don't think we even know. It just says T'Challa. Well, T'Challa, the Black Panther, the newly crowned King of Wakanda, played by Chadwick Boseman, he finds himself. Of course, in Civil War, his father dies, and he becomes, the next Black Panther. So in this film, you see him actually step into the role of king, and post Civil War, sort of carry out various operations and efforts to sort of kind of clean up a couple of things, a couple of loose ends with Wakanda, but then also sort of establish in a general sense what he wants to do in terms of his rule. And then you have, and so and Wakanda is actually, so Wakanda sits and is built upon a large reserve of vibranium, which is the strongest metal on Earth, which is what makes up Captain America's shield and all this other stuff. But what vibranium also does is it allowed Wakanda to be scientifically and technologically advanced for centuries. But the city remains hidden from the outside world, because if people knew what they had, they'd colonize. Plunder. Because all throughout history people are colonizing after Africa. So Wakanda was like Homer Simpson just stepping back into the shrubs, like, no sir, and just said no, this is too dangerous to get in the wrong hands. And so by stepping back, they avoided lots of large historical events that divided people, like slavery, the most notable one, war, really at all. And so he has something that he really needs to protect. And he has a very good reason for wanting to for not wanting to like take in refugees or share their science with other countries, or come to or administer foreign aid. So these are all very political topics, but they are very relevant to someone who is a ruler.
Right.
And you have Michael B. Jordan who believes that, as he says, there are 2 million people across the world that look like us, and they are struggling. They're poor. They're being killed. All this stuff, and you're not doing anything to help them, and look at everything you have. And so it could, so in the context of like the Dark Knight Rises, this is like just a big Occupy Wall Street, like, oh, you're rich, Bruce Wayne. But in this one, it's like, no, you have like extremely advanced medicine and science. You could absolutely help lots of people. So you have a villain and a main character with pretty opposing philosophies. And Michael B. Jordan, and the writers really crafted a villain that has a believable and sympathetic point of view.
Right. And exactly what you just said. It's a philosophical opposition. And it's not just like evil guy wants to shoot space laser into the sky and do a thing.
It's not revenge or anything like that.
Right. It's an actual philosophical kind of moral debate, which is interesting. And Marvel hasn't really done that. So, it's really cool.
And also, and it's not like he doesn't, it's not as pure. Now, Killmonger does want to he wants to go further than just helping. He wants to help all the black people, and he wants to overthrow other countries and have an uprising.
Yeah.
So it's not all good stuff. He's like, I want to help black people, but then I want to subjugate everybody else. He's kind of Malcolm X in that sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
And which, by the way, when I came back and told my dad, he was babysitting, he was like, "How was the movie?" I was like, "Oh, good." He's like, "So is this like a biopic or something?" He thought it was like a movie about like the Black Panther party. I was like, "No, it's a superhero film." Because I was saying things like, "Yeah, the audience really enjoyed it." He looked really puzzled, like, "Enjoyed it?
What is happening?
What is there to cheer for? I understand."
Right. No, ma'am.
When they protested that funeral, or what? When was it? Or when they intimidated voters.
Right.
So anyway, no, not about the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a whole lot of stuff I could go into and explain, but essentially, whoever's the ruler of Wakanda drinks their vibranium flower, and then they have the power of Black Panther. So you have a lot of other characters in this film, played by really the 3 female leads, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrera, and Letitia Wright. One of them, Lupita Nyong'o, playing a former love interest, or kind of the love interest, but that's not really at the forefront at all. That's just like, hey, by the way, this is our history.
Our history.
Blah blah blah. By the way, I'm a spy and I'm really good at it.
Right.
And then Denai Guerrera, who you might recognize from The Walking Dead, Michonne from The Walking Dead, is like the head of the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the King's Guard. She's like the military leader. And then Letitia Wright is his sister, and she's basically Q from James Bond. She just makes a ton of tech, and it's pretty neat. Again, a bunch of other characters in here, but I really want to hit home how much I liked the casting, how much I really thought the production design was really great in this film. When you have a city that has to simultaneously be rooted in African tradition, but also pretty futuristic, you have a really cool mix of styles and lots of color to showcase. And I just thought the production design was, and the costume design was, the art direction in this film was pretty strong.
I agree.
The first action sequence I think was really hard to follow, and I was pleased when the rest of them were not like that, because I was like, this is going to be rough if they're all dark and choppy like this. I don't know what was going on the day. I don't know if they had to shoot that thing super quick or something. I'm not sure what's going on there, but all the other action sequences are pretty awesome. You know, by and large. Are there any? Is there any good I'm forgetting, Dustin? Because I'm about to move on to the okay and critical.
I mean, you know, I just think it's a breath of fresh air for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's not only is it diversity, it's showcasing heroes that they don't look like all the other heroes that we know. I mean, the lead actor, his name is not Chris, and like, you know, it's a different.
It is Chad though, so it's close.
Right, close. But it's a very different feel to it. And,
a lot of CHs in the Marvel universe.
Yes,
Chris,
this is
Chad,
T'Challa,
Robert Downey Jr.
Right, Junior, yes. But I think it's I think for me, what was most enjoyable is that it just felt different from everything that came before. Yep. And, you know, whether it sort of gets mired down in some of the same old MCU problems or not is debatable. But I do think that it at least feels different. And for that, I mean, I gotta give him a round of applause. I gotta, you know, take my hat off to him. That alone really helped set this film apart from the rest of the pack, and that's desperately sort of what Marvel needs right now. Not that Marvel's doing anything wrong, but you know, just to stave off the effects of superhero fatigue or Marvel fatigue or whatever you want to call it. You know, I think that it's important to do new things.
Right, and also, I mean, there's the added sort of icing on the cake element for if you're black and you've got a hero that finally, you know, I don't want to get too much into like identity whatevers and like the importance of people
representation.
You know, I can't identify with Captain America unless he looks like me, sort of thing. Like I don't really buy into that. But when you're a kid, you know, it's kind of nice to have. I mean, when I was growing up, the only person who looked like me was that redheaded dude on Captain Planet, the fire ring.
Yeah.
You know, and it didn't really bother me because I was still like, I'm Goku. Goku doesn't look like me, but I was just like, okay, well, as well as I'm,
right.
I can pretend I'm a Super Saiyan, but I can't get past the fact that he doesn't have red hair. Like, you know, so I don't want to play too much into like that being, but I also don't know what that's like either to this extent. So it's really cool to have a cast. I mean, first of all, like, you know, if you really want to like, I don't want to sit here and be like the white person who like waxes poetic about like how great diversity is in film. Because in reality, it's a story about a king in a place, and there are characters, and the fact that we don't have to talk that much about the race of the cast is probably the actual achievement of the quality of this film. You know, it's not about race in that sense. It's just it just is.
And I feel like I was trying to explain this the other day. I think what's great about the diversity here is it's not diversity for diversity's sake. It's not just diversity. The importance here is that it's giving an entire group of people a place in the action movie pantheon, in the superhero movie pantheon. And so what is happening is action movies, superhero movies get to look different now. And that is an exciting thing, regardless of what race it is, or regardless of, you know, any, you know, distinction of people. It is important, I think, to have stories about different people.
Yeah.
You can only watch the same type of person do the same type of thing over and over for so long before it gets dull and boring. But if you shake it up, and I know it seems like a small change, but even if you change the race or the ethnicity of a character, or rather of the protagonist of this type of film, it really goes a long way in making things seem fresh and making them seem new, when in fact it's not. And so, but what it does to me, more importantly as a creative, is it allows people who may write stories about people who aren't, square-jawed white guys to have a voice finally, right? So a Ryan Coogler can actually write an action movie and get it made now, because what Black Panther does is it proves that audiences don't care.
Right.
Audiences aren't looking for just white guys. And Wonder Woman proved the same thing.
Right.
For so long, there was this stigma in Hollywood that you had to you couldn't make a movie about a woman, and so an action movie about a woman, and so there's this idea going around, and I think it's super important that Hollywood can and should branch out and make movies about all different types of people, and I think it gives a lot of screenwriters the ability to sell projects that might not have sold before.
Exactly. It primes the film industry for a wider range of storytelling. It shows them like these kinds of films and these kinds of casts and this can be successful, and not just because it's a Marvel film, but because it's. I guarantee you, if you're a racist, you're not going to come out to this film just because it's a Marvel film. Like, and if you're like the people came out to this film because they heard it was good, but also it's just like this, whatever stigma surrounds like an African-American lead in a not comedy film about crime or drama or whatever, like that sort of thing, like, to just, and not only the absence of those stigmas, but also the presence of, not only is he black, he's a king. And the whole cast is, and just, it's good, it's very good for the film industry. And like you said, it really opens the door for lots of other stories to be told that were turned down because of either actual institutional racism or perceived lack of interest. Yeah, so exactly.
Now, what do you think about negatives here? I mean, what sticks in your craw, so to speak?
So this film doesn't have a lot of negatives, but it has a couple that kind of bother me looking back. And maybe they're nitpicks, but so I grew to have a problem with the third act or the final action sequence or whatever. It's not a structural thing. It's a in hindsight, it seems lazy. First of all, just on a broader scale, they are a very technologically advanced and progressive culture, but they still rule by monarchy, and they still decide a king by trial by combat. Yeah. And if, and then when, should we say spoilers? I mean, it's sort of in the trailer. I don't really want to,
Right.
I'll say, because it's not really a spoiler. Michael B. Jordan shows up and he challenges T'Challa for the throne, and he beats him in combat. And so now he's king, and everyone, and so like in half of the nation, like, is loyal to him immediately, no matter no matter what he comes in, he wants to burn this, get rid of this, burn that, like, stuff that's really not good. And they just do it. And it's just like, I don't know. That seemed kind of lazy, and a way to have lots of people for all the good guys to fight at the end. When really it's like, would these people really have, first of all, you wouldn't have this. And I understand, like, that part of their thing was like, we have like 1 foot in the future, 1 foot in tradition. So it was tradition to have, I get it. But it seems like, it just seemed, I don't have a huge problem with that, because it didn't really, while I was watching the film, it wasn't like a, wait a second moment. But it seemed like, this is just to get to the climax, and that seems,
I feel like I let that slide, and I'll tell you why. Like for me, the idea of tradition winning out, it's not so far fetched. I think that happens fairly often in life. But the more far fetched idea is that you'd have all these people who don't immediately start an uprising against him. It's not like he took power and then like a whole bunch of people were like, okay, we're fighting against you now, and he slaughtered all those people, and then you know what I mean, like it's like that little piece is missing. Instead, everybody just suddenly just turns on a dime and is like, well, we have to be loyal to him,
Right?
And I would let that go if it didn't for two things. One, the reason I do let it go is because I understand that they're afraid of him, and I get that. He just beat the strongest warrior they've got, theoretically, and so I get the fear aspect of it, but I might would let it go a little more abandon if it didn't feel like it was moving directly into like a battle at the end. Like you said, it just felt like, okay, he needs lackeys to keep all the other guys busy so that he can fight Black Panther. And so, they had to have people who were loyal to him. And I feel like it needed one of two things. Either it needed a scene where he slaughters the people that stand up against him, or where he goes and literally amasses that army by instilling fear in some way. Like, I will kill, everyone's son, or I will kill everyone's daughter, or whatever, if you don't join me, or you know what I mean? Like it was missing that motivation of like, okay, here's what I'm going to do if you don't join me. Then I could see that, the wheels moving in that direction. But yeah, as it is, it does, you're right, feel more like the screenwriter's just saying, okay, we got to have a battle at the end, so here you go. And yeah, I agree.
What would have been more believable, I think, would have been for him to go to like that fifth tribe, like those mountain people, and pretty much go in there and be like, hey, let's go down there and like, mess everybody up. But then you couldn't have the effective moment with their leader.
Right.
Maybe, and maybe that's why they didn't mess with that. But my first thing would have been like, you could still have that, just sort of like have Killmonger come in and overthrow him. They all follow Killmonger, and then that guy goes like, geez, like these people aren't really like with me. They're really not loyal to me. And then and you could still have the moment with him and Black Panther. So maybe it's because they want to do more stuff with him later that necessitates him having a fighting force. But the first thing I would have thought of was it would have been more believable to me that those people would be angry enough to murder other Wakandans than for the Kingsguard and other people to just go ahead and decide it's okay to try and kill T'Challa. I don't know.
I feel like there's a couple of sort of negatives other than that for me. One being, I think the visual effects look a little like in some areas it's great. Yeah. In some areas it looks a little lackluster, and I'm just thinking like, I don't know if it was rushed. I don't know if you guys didn't have the budget that you needed.
I think it was budget.
What was going on?
This thing was planned. I mean, this thing was.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like this was rushed that much.
Rushed. No, but there's a few things, and especially maybe towards the end where you have like the Black Panther fighting Killmonger, and it felt like everything I'm seeing right now is CG.
So what's like, funny? There's a shot. I'll try to find the clip for it because I said this reminds me of three things. There's a part where he Black Panther gets thrown, and he kind of digs his claws into a column and swings around and like spins
around it.
So that reminded me. So first of all, when they fall down there and they're fighting in midair, which I really liked actually. That reminded me of Spider-Man 3 because the same thing happened in that movie. And other people who pointed that out have been like, "That's so stupid." I'm like, actually, I like both of those things. I like silent fighting in the air with no music, just breath and punches. Cool. I like that. But then, so when he swings around the pole, that reminded me of the first X-Men. And then the unnatural way that their CG bodies are moving reminded me, sadly, of Blade 2. There's a fight sequence in there where like they have some sort of seamless transition between like Wesley Snipes and then like a CG Blade. And then I'm like, oh, it just kind of reminded me of that in a couple of parts. Yeah.
And there's a scene at the end that, especially for me, it was like there's nothing on this screen that is real except for two people's faces,
Right.
and everything else is fake. And so it's stuff like that. But there are really good moments. Now for me, story wise, it's weird because you and I are kind of flipped. Where you thought the third act was kind of I guess the weak point. I thought the second act was the weak point for me, and the third act was good. I mean, there's some ridiculous things, whatever, armored rhinoceroses or whatever, but in the middle section, I felt like it was the most out of place. Like you have all that stuff with Claw, you have all that stuff with Ross, you have all that stuff that's going on, and it's fine, but in the grand scheme of things, the story is about Wakanda. The story is about what's going on there. The story is about Killmonger, and the story is about T'Challa. And you almost have this big detour right in the middle of the movie, and it's just this huge chunk where all it does is introduce
tech.
Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. It's like, oh, we can do a car chase now. But it's like, but the people involved in the car chase don't even matter in the end. Like it doesn't make sense except for Claw, but then his whole purpose in being in the film is really just to be an entrance for Killmonger. And so, like, to me, it just felt disjointed. It felt like you have all this great stuff in Wakanda, and I love the first act. I thought it was really great. And but I've talked to people who are flip-flopped, but I liked the first act, and I thought it was great. I thought, everything there was super interesting. I loved the trial by combat. I loved all of that stuff. And that's more of what I wanted to see. And then it's like, boom, detour. Now we're, out of Wakanda doing a thing, and then we go back to it. So it was kind of like, well, what was the point? Like, could you not have done something in Wakanda in that second act, and then it would have felt like the whole thing was Wakandan, and then the first time you see outside Wakanda is like at the end. Would have been interesting to me. It would have been difficult to write Martin Freeman into that, sure, but I just feel like for me, that second act felt strange. It felt disjointed.
Well, and so one of the things I liked about the movie is that I appreciated that there were no obvious references to other Avengers films.
Yeah, I love that.
And so hearing you say all this, I'm wondering, like, did Ryan Coogler make compromises in terms of those types of scenes where he chose to have more subtle connections to the other Avengers films instead of overt ones? Like maybe there was a version of the script that was where, they still got from A to B, but they had to say Thor's name a few times or something. So maybe this way it was like, we're setting up stuff. Cause like for example, the rhinos, I thought those were ridiculous.
Sure.
But I told John, I said, that's an Infinity War setup. The only reason to bring in the rhinos in this film would be to establish that these big rhinos exist so they can trample aliens in Infinity War.
Sure.
Because that takes place. Sure. There's a battle in Wakanda.
Okay.
Or what appears to be Wakanda and Wakandan fighters in the trailer. So I'm thinking the only reason to bring that up is that when rhinos show up and start trampling Thanos' people, you go, oh, right, the rhinos. You don't go, holy shit, look at those rhinos. like I did in this film.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if like a lot of that tech introducing, which I didn't really mind because I felt like, well, one, this sets up, this sort of eases me into believing their world. This has helped me to suspend disbelief. Them setting up, the remote piloting system and all the other things that the vibranium can do. And it sort of set up like character in a way because it really displayed everyone's competency. Like they're experienced and they've done all this before and stuff. But I still agree that half of it's kind of inconsequential, and sort of a detour from really the center of the story.
And maybe it has consequence, maybe it has a point, but it feels like a different movie lodged in a different movie.
Yeah.
And that to me is weird because, it doesn't really feel much different than, say, a Civil War. And then you have, this epic, Shakespearean kind of thing, on either side of this random, Winter Soldier, Civil War,
Bond film, a lot of people
Rousseau Bond film. Yeah. And it just feels strange. Now, having said that, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So I can't knock it too much because it's not like I was sitting there rolling my eyes, like I did at the Rhinos. But or Superman flying Leia in The Last Jedi. But what I did is like, I guess at some level disconnect with the film for a minute at that point. It wasn't like, oh, I hate this. It was just kind of like, oh, this is strange. Like, we were just in Wakanda and now we're here.
At the same time, like in these movies where they do like missions, like I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, actually, I'm fine with all this. Like, it seems hokey, but it's like, one, this is a comic book film, and all these characters go on missions to a certain extent. So as long as what they do in those missions remains believable to me, then that's okay with me.
Sure.
I liked the kinetic absorption technology, although it really
cool.
is sort of. I hope they put some limits on that, because he really can do anything if that's taken to its extreme. He could fall from a plane, land, and nothing would happen. He'd just cause like an earthquake. Like, exactly. I mean, like, it's know, I am more like a 4. I really am, because like the more I think about it, like there isn't that much I really take that much issue with. There's just a couple of nitpicks. And what I appreciate about this film, I mean, one about Chadwick Boseman, I really appreciate that this hero feels different from, and he doesn't feel like he's written. Like one of the things that Avengers did for all these films, for good and bad both, is everyone started talking snappier, and I liked that because I liked their interplay. But you start getting like this Aaron Sorkin syndrome, where every character is clearly written by the same snarky dude,
right?
And so
T'Challa's not that.
T'Challa carries himself with this quiet strength. He's very sure of himself. He's very regal. Because he's not just a hero. He's a king. He's a ruler. He's a politician. He has to carry himself differently than Tony Stark. So, and I appreciate that he wasn't just cracking one-liners. Like, so all of his interplay with all his characters, that all felt very organic and appropriate. Some people are saying the dialogue is real stilted. Maybe some of the delivery was, but I think these characters and their relationships sold me.
Yeah, no, I feel like the movies, it's pretty good. It's one of those movies that it's hard to nitpick. You could obviously come in and say, oh, the second act I disengaged, or the third act I disengaged, or whatever the case is. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's like, I hated the second act, or I hated the third act. It's just kind of like, that's not what I wanted, or that seemed weird. But it's not necessarily like, I'm not hearing anybody go, oh yeah, I hated it. It was dumb. None of this made sense. It's a competent, well-made movie that does feature good performances. It's a good script. It gives us, like I said, one of the best Marvel villains to date. Maybe top 2, and up there with Loki. And it's a good movie. Is it overhyped? Maybe a little bit. But it's a good movie, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who can adequately explain why they would hate it.
Right, that's the thing. Like this, I kind of want to close it out, but I went on to Twitter and I just said, like, at Connor Dempsey on Twitter, by the way. If I said, can we please not politicize Black Panther? Can we It's not a good film because it's lefty, presumably, even though it's really not.
Right.
And it's not a bad film for the same reason. It's just a film about characters doing things and going through things and learning things, and it's good on its own merits.
I think Red Letter Media had a good sort of soundbite for that, which was, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I think it was Jay who said it, but it's essentially this is a movie that's made to sell toys. It's made to appeal to kids. It's made to appeal to an audience of everybody. So expecting some sort of deep political message or something that's going to be earth shattering, or like break people of racism or do anything crazy, puts too much pressure on the film, and the film was never designed to do any of that.
Right.
The film was designed to sell toys. The film was designed to please as many people as possible.
Yes.
The film was designed to be entertaining, and it did all of the things that it set out to do. Now, what people want to ascribe to it is their own problem, because the film, I don't think, ever reached to those heights.
No, the film ultimately conveys a very refreshingly unifying message.
Exactly.
You know, and because I thought, like, maybe I was like, oh boy, like, is this gonna sneak in some weird divisive stuff, you know? And it doesn't.
Sure.
You have a ruler dealing with very real problems, that, you know, one or two of which you might find familiar to what goes on today. But this is a person with some different circumstances, and you know, and so it's just interesting to see how this character grows and matures. Apparently, this is where we say goodbye to Dustin's audio. I'm not sure what happened, but it just sort of goes bye-bye. So that's why he doesn't get a chance to say goodbye, not because I shut him up. But yeah, I definitely recommend going to see Black Panther, obviously. It's going to be in theaters for a while. So 4 stars from me and Dustin both. It was pretty good. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah. So that's going to be it for this episode, you guys. For episode 151. I'm going to talk about Blade Runner 2049, and also, what was the other thing I was going to talk about? Ingrid Goes West, a couple of Redbox movies. But I have some interesting thoughts on those. One of them gets a pass from me, and one of them doesn't, based on the same rule. So if you'd like to find that out, come by for episode 151. Thank you for joining me, Dustin, on our abridged schedule today.